Well, for me, a lot of it comes because I'm influenced by Jung's work. Um, I was trained at a Jung Institute, and the idea is that for me, the archetypal and the shamanic are um, what they call visions and what we call archetypes, where they call entities and we call archetypes, are basically the same. They're just different words to describe it. Uh, Most people have a very intellectual relationship with the idea of archetypes. It's like a symbol that just lives there, as opposed to what Jung actually meant is that archetypes are living entities. They're living energies that impact us, that can possess us, that can teach us. Um, so for me, the idea is when we have experiences, and I think ayahuasca is one of the most powerful openers to the archetypal, is first just to note what happened to me when I was having the experience. Did I contract? Did I expand? Did I feel fear? Did I feel some kind of, so really I want just people to tell me what was their experience, and then and not to jump to meaning making. I don't know if people have that in your retreats, but people love having, they love it when they have visions of jaguars and owls and all kinds of familiar mythological images. It's less fun when the visions or the archetypes are more dark or more challenging, or you see the wickedness of your mother or the harshness of your father or stuff like that. So the idea for me is, how do I stay in the experience without moving too fast to interpreting it and intellectualizing it? So I want to stay with the feelings, I want to stay with the sensations, and I want to stay with the interaction. So what happened? Did I hear something? Maybe it wasn't verbal, but I was standing next to this big luminous tree and I felt an incredible sense of peace. I felt a connection to the earth. Okay, that's the information I want to work with. So that would be the first step, is really staying with these things and getting curious. Like, why did I feel relaxed when I was, let me see if I can find something. Yeah, I remember for myself, I'll talk. I had one ayahuasca ceremony where I was sitting, and the person who was leading it had a lot of Buddhist influence. And all of a sudden, I saw this in my field of vision, this great big black Buddha, and with flames all around it. And my response was contraction. I felt fear, and I heard this voice say, "Did you notice what had just happened to you? Like, why are you afraid?" And it opened this whole process for me around really staying with that question in the moment, being like, wait, why am I afraid? And end up being this profound lesson for me about my own relationship with the feminine. Because the image, then the vision was like, I am a feminine Buddha. Like, why are you so scared? This is just my look. This is not my essence. And I had to go into this very deep inquiry of like, oh, why did I respond that way? Why did I contract? What is it about this fierce version of a feminine that made me feel fear? And I worked with it for a long, long time afterwards, and in a way, still working with it. So for me, really, the idea is, how do you get very curious, stay very present with the feelings and the sensations and how they unfold when you explore them, and eventually some insight, some lesson that's more tangible will come up, and then there is what we I call, there is integration, and then there's implementation. Then maybe there is something to implement.
Thank you for sharing that experience. And so you say archetypes in Jungian philosophy is like same as entities in the
Hmm.
more shamanic approach. So, what are archetypes? What are the common ones? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, there's a book called Jungian Shamanism by a guy called Michael Smith, who he wrote this a long time ago, and he was one of the first pioneers to bridge those worlds. One of the ways in which Jungian shamanism cross is that Jung talked about being possessed. He said archetypes will possess you. So when they really descend on us, and if we don't have the awareness, the practices, the consciousness, right? That's when I become a child. I'm not experiencing my child, I'm become a child. Or I become the rageful parent, or I become uh, the person who goes to one ayahuasca retreat and thinks they've, become they are world renowned healer, and now they have to go spread the gospel, which we can talk about a possession of the healer of the shaman archetype. Um, so that's I think one way in which they really, yeah, they those worlds mirror each other. Um, but let me what's the say the question again, Sam?
So yeah, what you say archetypes is the same as entities. So
Uh-huh. Yeah. The common ones are there's like the personal psychological, the inner child, the inner critic, the father, the mother, um, culture, the lover, the magician, right? There's all these things. The shadow. Let's just start. That's a huge one in the psychedelic world. Everybody talks about shadow work, shadow work. Shadow is an archetype, right? That's one version of an archetype. And then we move to what we can say there is transpersonal archetypes, which is animals, gods, goddesses, deities, God, soul, right? Those, and we kind of move between those worlds. We can experience also their connection, right? I worked with someone who had pretty severe sexual trauma and was raised in a religious background where God was only a punishing God, and then this person went and had a entheogenic experience, and she met the most benevolent, loving God, and she didn't know what to do with that because her own experience of herself was that she's bad, she's damaged because she was had sexual trauma, that God only punishes people like her. And then meeting this benevolent God who continuously for hours just showered her with love and praises and reassurance and very positive reinforcement. And she came out of it. She's like, I don't know what to do with this God. She literally said that. I don't know what to do with this God. It doesn't fit inside this. And our work was to build a relationship with that God and see, like, because that relationship with the God meant that she had to deal with her own self hatred, with her own, right, her how she was wrapped around shame and really identified with shame, how she treated her body, how her relationship with food, it opened up every dimension of her life. And that's because she had this very, very profound experience with what we would call a transpersonal archetype with God. Um, and I think they are the same, or I would say the same as what I understand shamanic entities to be, because they are an entity, right? The plants have an intelligence. I think that's across ayahuasca traditions. All plants have intelligences. All of a sudden, the animals, when you're under in that world, animals talk. They teach you the land. You can hear. I remember being in Peru and hearing the jungle breathe in my first ayahuasca experience, and it was incredibly beautiful and overwhelming. And I was like, oh, wow, I can hear the breath of this thing and how big and profound. Um, and from what I'm curious, the tradition you come from and how you work with this. And from what I understand, they have, at least in the Shapibo lineage, which is what I'm connected to, they relate to those entities the same way. You talk to them, you give them your time, you do ritual, you honor them, and you listen, and you see what you can learn from them. And that's exactly the same thing as working with archetypes, either in dreams or in psychedelic experiences.
yeah, I think it's the same in all um, traditions that are connected to the nature. They're very clearly understand that everything has a spirit.